Welcome back to the deep end.
It is genuinely good to be back.
You know, usually when we sit down to record these deep dives, I have my routine. I have my coffee, black, no sugar. I have my stack of notes.
You're usually very grounded.
Very grounded. I feel like we're standing on solid earth, about to tackle a topic we can, hold in our hands. But today the vibe in the studio is a little different.
It is. It really is. It's a little spectral, maybe.
Spectral is the exact perfect word for it. It's relaxed, for sure. We're chilling. But there is this distinct undercurrent.
Oh, yeah.
I was reading through the source material for this deep dive last night, and I caught myself looking over my shoulder a few times.
I did the exact same thing.
Right. It just makes you wonder, are we just two people talking into microphones right now, or are we channeling something else entirely?
Well, considering the source material we're covering today, asking that question might actually be the first step in understanding the content.
Yeah.
It's a dangerous question, but a completely necessary one.
Fair point. We are about to get weird, but in the best, most practical way possible. I promise you that.
Definitely.
But before we slip into a trance state ourselves, we have to do the mandatory housekeeping. Just so everyone listening is clear on the parameters here, this podcast is distributed free of charge on all major platforms for educational purposes.
Absolutely. We are here to learn, to explore, and to share these insights with you. We aren't selling a dogma. We're unpacking a historical document.
Okay, let's set the scene, because context here is everything. We aren't doing a general overview of a broad topic today.
No, not at all.
We aren't summarizing a decade of research. We're zooming in, way, way in. We're looking at a specific document, a single night in history.
Right.
We are analyzing session 401 of the early sessions, book 8 of the Seth Material.
And to be incredibly precise,
Right.
the date of record is March 27, 1968. It is a Wednesday night, 9 to 5 p.m.
And just to give you, the listener, the visual here, we are in Elmira, New York. We're in the living room of Rob and Jane. Rob is Robert Butts, a painter. Jane is Jane Roberts, a writer and poet. And Jane, who we know as the medium for the entity known as Seth, she acts differently this night.
She really does. The notes from Rob are very specific about this. Usually there's a ramp-up period.
Like a transition.
Exactly. A little bit of breathing, a little bit of hesitation before the channeling starts. But here, Jane enters the trance with her eyes open immediately.
Which is wild.
No pauses at all. Her voice is strong right out of the gate. It's described as a deep trance state from the very first second.
Which is spooky in itself. Just imagine your spouse sitting there and then suddenly they aren't there anymore.
And someone else is looking out through their eyes. The energy in that room was apparently palpable.
So Seth comes through, and he's on a mission. And what I really love about this session, and why we chose it for this deep dive, is that it's not about the history of the galaxy.
Right, or predicting the future of politics.
Exactly. Or lost civilizations. It is a masterclass on art.
It really is. It's technical, it's spiritual, and it's surprisingly practical. Even if you aren't a painter, even if the only thing you've ever painted is a wall in your living room, the mental models here apply to how you view absolutely everything.
Exactly. So the mission for this deep dive is to unpack Seth's advice to Rob on how to capture the invisible.
Yes.
How do you paint reality? How do you put the unseen onto a physical canvas? And you'll definitely want to stick around, because later in the discussion, Seth actually, he calls in a substitute teacher.
That is honestly one of those chilling and fascinating moments in the entire archive.
I know.
A surprise guest appearance from another entity entirely who has very, very specific opinions on color palettes.
I can't wait to get to that. It's like an interdimensional cameo. But let's start with the core philosophy here. We need to lay the groundwork before we get to the ghost stories.
Makes sense.
Let's jump into the first major theme, the art of stepping in.
Let's do it.
So I'm not a professional artist, but I've taken a class or two. I've watched my fair share of Bob Ross. And the one thing that I always tell you constantly is to step back. You paint a little, you step back 5 feet, you squint, you look at the composition. It's all about getting distance to see the whole picture.
It's about objectivity.
Right.
That is the traditional Western approach to perspective and analysis. We are taught from day one that objectivity requires distance. You have to separate the subject, meaning you, the artist, from the object, which is the landscape.
Because if you're too close, you can't see it clearly. That's the standard dogma.
And Seth looks at that dogma and basically says, you're doing it wrong.
Completely wrong. He completely flips the script.
He argues that you cannot step outside of reality to view it better. If you step back, you are removing yourself from the truth of the scene. You're alienating yourself from the actual data.
Wow.
If you want to paint the truth of a landscape, you have to step into it.
I want to read this quote from the session because it really sets the tone for everything we're talking about today.
Go for it.
Seth says, "You as artists should not step backward to see the landscape more clearly, but step into it so that you can feel it more clearly."
Feel it more clearly. That is the key operational phrase right there. It shifts the primary sense from vision to feeling.
But I have to push back on this a little bit just for the sake of clarity for you listening. What does that actually mean?
Okay.
If I'm standing in a field painting a mountain, I can't physically walk into the granite. I just bump my head. Is this just poetic language, or is he suggesting a specific action?
It is a specific action, but it's a mental one. It requires a total shift in how you define reality.
Yeah.
This brings us to the metaphysical distinction Seth is always making, but he applies it so beautifully to art here.
The difference between form and energy.
Exactly. He distinguishes between form and energy.
Okay, let's unpack that. Form versus energy. Because to me, the form is the thing. The rock is the rock.
But that's the illusion.
Yeah.
Think of form as just the temporary shell, the shape of the mountain, the texture of the bark on the tree, the physical curve of a rock. That is form.
It's what your eyes see.
Right. It's the skin of reality.
Yeah.
But Seth calls the force behind it alive energy, and that energy is permanent.
So the rock isn't the main thing. The energy maintaining the rock is the main thing.
Precisely. The rock is just a symptom of the energy. It's a temporary arrangement of atoms held together by consciousness.
Okay.
So the goal of the artist shouldn't be to just copy the shapes. That's just copying the symptom. The goal is to capture the conscious energy that forms those shapes.
It's kind of funny if you really think about it. We usually look at a landscape, like a hill, some trees, a cloud, as this totally passive background.
Right, like a stage set.
Exactly. It's just stuff sitting there waiting to be painted. It has no agency. But Seth talks about it like it's watching you back.
It is. He says the landscape is alive. And if you step into it, you're acknowledging that you, the artist, are made of the exact same energy as the tree you're painting.
You aren't an observer looking at a subject.
No, you are energy looking at energy.
It's a merger.
It is a complete merger. And this isn't just high-level theory. Seth advises Rob to sketch outdoors for this very reason.
Oh, right.
Not because the natural light is better, though it might be, but because it helps the artist sense this inner unity. When you are out there, with the wind and the bugs and the dirt, it's so much easier to feel that you are part of the landscape.
He says, you paint reality from within. That is a bumper sticker right there.
Truly.
But it's also a really hard thing to do when you've been trained your whole life to be objective.
It is profound. If you try to paint the outside of a thing, you just get a husk. If you step in and paint from the inside out, you get art that feels alive. You get the pulp, not just the peel.
Which leads us directly to the how, because I think that's where people really get stuck with this kind of esoteric stuff.
Right, the practical application.
It sounds nice to say be one with the tree, but how do you actually do that on a Tuesday afternoon when you're stressed and your paint is drying too fast? Seth isn't just throwing out platitudes here. He gives Rob a very specific, very trippy mental exercise. Which brings us to our next big point, the center of the universe exercise.
This is where the session goes from interesting art theory to mind-bending reality shift. This is the actionable takeaway for anyone listening, artist or not.
So let's walk through it. Imagine Rob is out there in the field with his sketchbook. Seth tells him to pick one small thing, not the whole panoramic view.
Right, don't try to swallow the whole landscape.
Just one thing, a single flower or a stone.
A focal point. You need an anchor for your consciousness.
And here is the instruction. Step 1, focus on that stone. Look at it. Really look at it.
Okay.
Step 2, imagine the energy inside that stone is endlessly alive. It's vibrating. It's conscious. It's not dead matter.
Okay, so far, that's standard mindfulness, acknowledging the life in things.
But step 3, and this is the kicker, pretend that this little stone is the center of life for the entire universe.
Just pause on that for a second. Let that really sink in for you.
Yeah, it's heavy.
That is a radical shift in perception. Usually we think of a stone as a fragment. It's a tiny, insignificant piece of a giant universe.
Right, we're trained to think in terms of hierarchy.
Exactly. Universe, big, stone, small. Seth says, invert that entirely. Flip the telescope. Imagine the universe originates from the stone.
So you're standing there looking at a pebble, and you have to visualize that the energy is radiating outward from that pebble to create the trees, the sky, the clouds, and even you.
Yes.
The pebble is the generator.
You are visualizing the stone as the primary source of reality. The sun isn't lighting the stone is projecting the sun.
That is deeply chilling. It makes me feel small and huge at the exact same time. It's like a vertigo of the soul.
It is chilling.
Hmm.
And the implication for the painting is what really matters here. Seth says that if you do this, if you paint that stone while holding the firm belief that it is generating the universe, the painting itself will change.
The actual physical painting.
Yes, the brushstrokes will change. The way you lay down the pigment will be fundamentally different.
How so, though? How does a mental thought change the oil paint? It's just chemistry, right? Pigment and oil.
It creates what he calls psychic expansion. Even if you only paint the stone, the viewer will look at it and subconsciously sense the rest of the universe. The intent is actually captured in the medium.
So a painting of a rock isn't just a painting of a rock. It implies everything that isn't painted.
Yes. Seth puts it beautifully. He says it will automatically remind the viewer of the universe that you did not paint.
That's the secret sauce. That is the difference between a technical drawing and art with a capital A.
Definitely.
That's why some art makes you cry and some art is just decoration. One is closed, the other is infinite.
It's all about resonance. And Seth actually drops a little art history knowledge here, which is fascinating.
Oh yeah, he mentions the old masters.
Specifically, some Spanish artists who understood this intuitively.
Which is funny because the notes in the book say Jane and Rob knew nothing about Spanish art. They weren't art historians.
Right. Jane apparently didn't care for it at all. But Seth references Velázquez-type painters. He says they could paint a small still life, maybe just a bowl or a piece of fruit on a table, and make it suggest spiritual realities.
Yeah.
They managed to make a physical object look like a window into the divine.
Because they weren't painting the object. They were painting the energy that creates the object.
Exactly. They captured the radiation of energy, not just the reflection of light.
I love this idea that if you paint a rock correctly, it implies the existence of the entire unseen universe. It honestly makes me want to go to a museum and just stare at backgrounds.
It changes how you see everything. And it's not just for painting, it's for seeing in general. If you look at your coffee cup right now and imagine it as the center of the universe radiating outward, it stops being just a cup.
It becomes a miracle.
It breaks the autopilot of daily life.
Okay, let's bring it down to earth for a minute, or maybe down to the canvas. Because Seth gets surprisingly technical in this session. He doesn't just talk high philosophy, he talks supplies. He talks chemistry. He talks about the actual goop in the paint tube.
He does. It's fascinating when a disembodied entity starts giving tutorials on oil application.
Right.
Usually, channeled material is very abstract, like love is light, all is one, that sort of thing. This is like, no, Rob, grab the linseed oil and the burnt sienna.
Here's how you layer your glazes, Rob.
Yeah.
But it's totally consistent with his overall philosophy. Seth categorizes the paint types metaphysically. He assigns spiritual values to physical materials.
He does.
This brings us to technical alchemy. Transparents versus opaques. Break it down for you listeners who might not be painters. What are we actually talking about here?
So he talks about transparents. These are the paints that let light through. Glazes, thin washes. If you put them on canvas, you can clearly see what's underneath them.
Okay.
Seth says these should represent energy, spirit, and mobility.
So transparency equals spirit. That makes sense. It's light, it's airy.
Then you have opaques, the thick, heavy paint. You can't see through it. It covers things up. It physically blocks light. Seth says these represent physical time, gravity, and the appearance of permanency.
The appearance of permanency. I like that subtle dig.
Oh, always. Nothing is actually permanent to Seth. But the opaques represent that illusion of solidity we deal with in 3D space. The hard stuff of the world. The things you can bump your toe on.
So the technique he recommends is a combination. It's not one or the other. You don't just paint with ghosts.
No. The secret sauce, as you call it. He tells Rob to use transparents to show the energy, even for heavy things like rocks. He says, and I love this, rocks are actually light as air in terms of energy.
A rock is light as air.
Energetically, yes.
Right.
Because it's just vibrating atoms. It's 99% empty space. So you paint the energy with transparents first. You lay down the spirit.
Right.
Then you superimpose the opaques lightly over that energy.
So you're layering the physical world on top of the spiritual world right there on the canvas.
Precisely. You balance the heavy form, the earth, with the constant renewal of energy, the spirit. If you use too much opaque, the painting looks dead. It looks heavy. Ponderous is the exact word he uses.
Ponderous.
But if you get the balance right, the object looks like it's vibrating. It looks like it has a soul.
I feel like this is good life advice, not just painting advice. Don't be too opaque. Let the light through.
Don't be too ponderous. Absolutely. If you take yourself too seriously, You become opaque. You lose the spirit.
Now, speaking of taking things seriously, we have to talk about the apple section, because this cracked me up when I read it.
Oh, the roast. The philosophical roast of Rob's fruit.
Seth is going through Rob's work, giving him direct feedback, and he brings up apples.
Just a humble apple, the classic still life subject.
Apparently, Rob struggles with painting objects, specifically making them sit in space correctly. And Seth, speaking through Jane, remember, starts critiquing the philosophy of the apple.
He says an apple isn't stuck in space. We tend to think of space as a container, right? Like a cardboard box.
Yeah.
And you put the apple inside the box. So the apple is separate from the space. It's an intruder in the empty space.
Right, that's how we all perceive the world. I am here, the room is around me, I am sitting in the room.
Seth says, no, that's wrong. The apple makes itself out of space. It transforms space into an apple.
That is such a trippy concept. The apple isn't occupying space. It is actively creating space around it. It's pulling the fabric of reality together to form a skin.
It's active. It's an event, not a thing. It is a happening.
Yeah.
And then comes the humor.
Yes.
Seth says, and this is a direct quote from the transcript, Rupert does not want me to hurt your feelings with apples.
Rupert being his name for Jane. So Jane's subconscious is bubbling up through the trance like, Seth, be nice. Don't make him feel bad about his fruit painting. He's sensitive. He's been working really hard on those Granny Smiths.
And Seth is just like, I'm just trying to help him understand the metaphysics of fruit.
It's just a funny image. You have this interdimensional consciousness, immense wisdom, explaining the fundamental nature of reality, and he pauses to gently roast a guy about his still life skills.
It really humanizes the interaction. It shows the relationship they actually had. It wasn't just cold data transmission. It was a friendship in a way. It shows that learning these deep truths doesn't have to be somber. It can be playful.
Totally. So speaking of critiques, that leads us into the next phase of the night. Seth doesn't just critique the hypothetical apple. He literally walks around the room using Jane's body and critiques the art hanging on the walls.
A gallery review from the other side.
Imagine how nerve-wracking that would be. You're the artist, your wife is in a trance, walking around your living room, and the entity she's channeling is looking at your paintings going, meh, this one works, this one doesn't.
But the criteria for working is fascinating. It's not about technique in the traditional sense. He looks at a portrait Rob did of Seth, or rather Jane as Seth.
Right.
And Seth likes it. But not because it's a good likeness. He doesn't care if the nose is the right shape. He likes it because it suggests an unseen audience.
Oh, interesting. What does that mean exactly?
He says the figure in the painting looks like it's speaking to someone who isn't there. It implies humanity. It implies a connection to the unseen. So, and again, it's about expansion.
Right.
The painting isn't closed off. It's open to something outside the frame.
Then he looks at a seascape.
And he gives that a thumbs up too, because it suggests the energy moving the ocean. It captures the motion, not just the water. It captures the verb, not just the noun.
But then they get to the tree.
The tree, painted in 1960. This one gets the red pen.
What was wrong with the tree? Did it look like a piece of broccoli?
No, it probably looked exactly like a tree. And that was the whole problem. Seth says it is trapped by the object. It doesn't suggest the energy that forms trees. It just is a tree. It's static. It's a shell.
Trapped by the object. That is such a heavy critique. It's like saying, you painted the noun, but you missed the verb completely.
Exactly. You painted the mask, but you missed the face underneath. You painted the dead wood, not the living force.
So the critique is winding down. It's around 10:15 p.m. The session seems to be reaching a natural conclusion. The lesson is seemingly over.
And then the vibe shifts.
The chilling shift. This is the part that gave me goosebumps when I read the transcript. It feels like a plot twist in a movie.
Me too. It takes a hard left turn. Seth is talking about technique, and suddenly he just stops. And he says, now, some of my suggestions for you this evening come from better sources than I. For as you know, I am no artist.
Wait, Seth, the entity who has been giving this absolute masterclass for an hour, suddenly says, actually, I'm not an expert. Let me bring in a pro.
It's incredibly humble and also incredibly strange. Jane, or Seth, seems to turn away, like they are conferring with someone else in the room, an invisible someone.
And who steps forward?
An entity introduced as Van Elder, or possibly Van Elder. He is described as a Dane or a Norwegian, from the 1700s or 1800s, a painter of domestic scenes. Not a famous name we would necessarily know, but a craftsman, someone who lived the life of paint.
Okay, so we have a ghost painter entering the chat.
Literally, and this isn't just a quick hello. Van Elder takes over the technical advice entirely. And the specificity here is wild. This isn't generic advice anymore. It's a recipe. It's actual chemistry.
Read us the recipe. What does Van Elder tell Rob to do?
Okay, he's talking about flesh tones, how to paint skin that looks alive. He says start with siennas.
Burnt sienna, raw sienna, earth tones, pretty standard.
Right. Then a suggestion of violets, but lightly.
Violets for skin. That sounds completely counterintuitive. I wouldn't think to put purple on a face unless they were freezing or holding their breath.
It's actually a very classical technique for creating complex, lifelike skin, veins, shadows, the translucency of flesh. It often reads as violet or cool blue, just under the surface.
Oh, wow.
Then, he says, build it up with transparent ochre and a specific muted green.
Green and violet for skin tones.
It balances the reds. It creates neutrality. If you only use pink and beige, it looks like plastic. The green and violet give it blood and depth. And then the final instruction. The top complexion tone should be laid on lightly, as if a wind could blow it away.
As if a wind could blow it away. That is pure poetry.
It's so specific. It's not Seth's voice anymore. Seth is usually very logical, very precise. This is the voice of someone who spent a lifetime holding a brush. You can feel the muscle memory in the words.
And what happens to Jane during all this? Is she just sitting there?
She is deep in it. When she finally wakes up, she's incredibly groggy. She says it was the deepest trance she has ever been in. She felt tremendous power going through her.
It's almost like the connection had to widen to let this second entity through.
That's a really good way to put it. The bandwidth increased. The pipe had to get bigger. And Rob, for his part, notes that he had never heard of this technique. He didn't know about the violets and greens, but he admits it sounds sound and worthy.
It's just such a cool moment. It blurs the line between inspiration and channeling. Like, where do ideas come from? Did Rob pull that technique from the collective unconscious? Or did a Norwegian ghost literally whisper it in his ear?
In the world of the Seth Material, those might be the exact same thing.
That's true. Very true.
But it emphasizes the main point of the episode. You are not alone. Whether you are painting a picture or just living your life, you are surrounded by a live energy. You are part of a massive network.
So what does this all mean for us, for you, the listener, who maybe doesn't paint, who doesn't own a sketchbook, who isn't mixing siennas and ochres on a palette?
I think it comes right back to the center of the universe exercise. You don't need paint to do that.
Right.
You can do it on your morning commute. You can do it while washing dishes. Look at the soap bubble. Imagine it is the center of the universe. Feel the energy radiating from it.
It breaks the autopilot.
It completely breaks the autopilot. It reminds you that reality isn't solid. It's fluid. It's magical. And you are woven into it. You aren't stepping back from your life. You are stepping into it.
I love that. Don't step back. Step in.
Step in.
Well, this has been an absolute trip. I feel like I need to go find a rock in my yard and just stare at it for 20 minutes.
Highly recommended. Let me know what universes you create.
Before we wrap up, let's recap the big takeaways from session 401. If you, the listener, only remember 3 things from this deep dive, what should they be?
Number 1, the mistake of objectivity. Don't try to step outside of reality to understand it. Merge with it. Subjectivity is actually the path to truth.
Number 2, the visualization. Pick a small object. Imagine it's the source of all energy. Use that feeling to expand your perception of the world.
And number 3, the technical balance. Balance the opaques, which are the physical form, with transparence, the spiritual energy. You really need both to capture the feeling of life.
And of course, the mandatory credit, where credit is absolute due. This entire deep dive is based on the Seth Material, specifically the Early Sessions Book 8, published by New Awareness Network.
We barely scratched the surface of what is in these books. They are dense, they are funny, they're entirely mind-blowing. We strongly encourage you to not just take our word for it, read the source text yourself.
Seriously, go to the bookstore. You can find them at sethcenter.com/the early sessions. Support the publishers who keep this incredible material in print.
It's so worth the deep dive.
So we usually leave you with a provocative question. And today, I think the question basically writes itself.
I think so too.
We talked about the apple. Seth said, if a painting of an apple can imply the existence of an entire unseen universe just by how it's painted.
What does your own physical form imply about the energy that created you?
Think about that. You are the painting. What is the unseen universe that you are implying just by standing there?
That is a very big thought for a Tuesday.
Or Wednesday night at 9 to 5 p.m.
Indeed.
Thanks for joining us in the deep end. We'll see you in the next deep dive.
See you then.
And remember, step in.